Now turn to another part of Donald Trump's Ukraine scandal that I haven't hit yet tonight. Not all conservatives are saying what Trump did was okay. Some say it's not okay, but is still not impeachable.
Now, you may not like what Trump said, but it's hard to see how it's a crime. Certainly, it's hard to see how it's an impeachable offense. And yet, all of a sudden, everybody in D.C., nodding sagely in unison, thinks it is.
That's Tucker Carlson, and he's actually co-authored a new piece out today that directly rebukes Trump, saying, quote, Trump should not have been on the phone with a foreign head of state encouraging another country to investigate his opponent, Joe Biden. There's no way to spin this as a good idea. Continuing, once those in control of our government use it to advance their political goals, we become just another of the world's many corrupt countries. So Tucker there in that discussion of corruption is arguing that Trump's call is bad, but does not rise to the level of an impeachable offense. And that is a legitimate argument in this debate, because under our Constitution, many bad things that a president may do are not generally defined as impeachable, from holding abhorrent views to making bad decisions to starting unnecessary wars. And if Congress is fair about this impeachment probe, the decision should not turn on any opinions about this president in general, but on the narrower, harder question of whether Donald Trump committed the high crime of abusing his office. If the House impeaches, that sets up a Senate trial. And one thing I can tell you about covering trials, you have to hear the prosecution and the defense to make any sense of them. And this is the other thing I'll tell you. We're going to try to do exactly that this Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern, because I'm anchoring a live special here on MSNBC, Trump and Ukraine, the impeachment crisis. And we're going to go beyond these sometimes overwhelming days, including this one of breaking news, to take a step back and explore these larger questions, including a debate with two of the nation's legal experts on both sides. Now, if you want to hear a pitch only for impeachment, this Sunday may not be the program for you. But if you are interested in doing what we do here, trying to tackle hard questions on all sides of any potential trial of President Trump, then I hope you'll join me and Melissa Murray and Maya Wiley and John Flannery and David Rivkin and Pulitzer Prize winners John Meacham and Eugene Robinson. That is this Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.